I really believe that drills, unopposed drills, have their benefit because you have to be able to take a pass, you have to be able to make a pass, and all this kind of stuff. But if you can't do it under pressure and people can't support you, it doesn't really transfer to a game. So the process that I really believe in is you work on these things, but they always have to go into game situations. And either, like on the breakout, you can work on, well, he's got a sequence breakout, I do. But then they have to do that breakout under pressure. So you create some kind of a pressure situation that they have to do. You can put pressure in a drill, but ideally, like a one-on-one drill, traditional one-on-one drill, you do the one-on-one, the puck is loose, you don't fight for it, you go back to line because you got to get out of the way because the next one-on-one. So ideally, you do a transition game that support follows. The defender's got to get the puck and make that breakout pass. And then it goes, another one starts the other way. So I think that is probably a better way to teach all these game situations is put them actually into game, into games. So that it's pretty simple, but I don't see it happening. I see practices before I play. There's always these guys, like Greg said, right, going around the cones and doing all these incredibly terrific things, but nobody's trying to take the puck off them. And there's nothing wrong with doing that, but if that's all you do, you're not producing a very well-rounded hockey player. So it's a very difficult game it's the hardest game to be able to do because you have to be a good skater first before you can do any of this stuff. And that's a huge skill in itself. So, you know, so you have to teach them to be complete players, just not one specific segment of the game.
Craig, in terms of coaching education, this was through Hockey Canada. We talk about deliberate practice, and there's no decision making really. Passes are made from the same location at the same time and two different locations, predictable, no decision making. And then there's random practice, and that's where there's pressure, decision making, varying degrees of it to get you thinking about applying those skills. I think that's the gap in the game today, at least at the levels we work at. Uh, you mentioned the player getting the puck on, the binders on, going the length of the ice, and then thinking about options. Well, we're faced with 1-on-5 hockey here. That seems to be generally what's speaking. What you're talking about is the creative game, the interchangeable game, the spontaneous game. I really do think what you're talking about is the way the game is going and the way the game should be. It's just a matter of how do we get there? What can we do better? What can we do differently than we're doing? Is it too hard to change coaches or is it slowly working out? Because something's happening good at the top levels because they're doing some things that are just incredible. So, any thoughts on that, Craig?
Well, I'll kind of take this where I think we're heading, which is stealing from each other. In particular, like I was laughing at the development camps that were going on for the NHL teams. A lot of times people will see the NHL teams doing it and suddenly they want to apply it for their kids, which is much, much different, as we all can attest to the younger age groups. So, what does that look like? What's good versus bad, and understanding what good practices look like for our kids, and kind of getting to Tom's point earlier around applying it to games. Like one of my favorite ones is just a 2-on-5. Like, so there's a team breaking out. They always have 5, and then we're just progressively adding more players. So it's continuous, going from 2 to 3 to 5 forecheckers. So they're getting those game-like reads where it's not just all the same thing, and you have an actual opponent. they're trying to stop you, which I think is probably where we all want to go. And there are times where you may want to go through just what are some concepts within this. Again, that's where I love to use the newsletter. So I've got one on what's center support look like for the breakout. So I'm sending that, and constantly kids are harping now, low and slow, inside the dots, all of these concepts to help make the breakout more efficient and better. And then also I've got another one on defensive reads. So when they go back, almost like a quarterback in football, they're going through option 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then finally get to the check down there at the end. But the ideas of how do we make it efficient? How do we maybe spend some time on the internal details away from the rink where we're not having to spend the time on it, and then giving them the repetition without repetitiveness that they need to see in practice so they can build up the experience of being able to read pressure and find the correct option, solution, whatever you want to call it. And obviously starting small and then continuously building it harder and harder and harder. And I like to, if we can, build to the point where we're making it harder than the game. So like, for example, inverted rushes, where it's instead of a 3-on-2, it's a 2-against-3. So you've got 3 defenders and you've got 2. Find ways to find solutions there. Some groups get to it, some don't. Obviously, that's where the coaching comes in, of trying to find that Goldilocks of too easy, too hard, and what's just right for our group and our players. But getting to that idea of challenging our players properly and just giving them the repetitions without being repetitive on it's always the same movement solution over and over again. That's the real key, I think, for getting the translation into a game where it may not show up exactly how you thought, but the players have enough recognition and pattern understanding to see what might be available to me, what can be that tool in the tool belt that I need to pull out for this situation to have success.
Hal, I see a pensive look on your face.
Well, no, I mean, I agree with all of it. And, yeah,